All right, all right, all right. Paul, what's up, man?
What's up, Luck?
Do I
Man,
sound clear? Am I good, clear?
I can hear you great.
Okay,
Come
there it
on.
is. There it is. Okay, okay. Let me see, man.
How's your day going, man? Everything good?
Yeah, man, everything's good. You know what? To be real with you, I was looking forward to this. Um, oh shoot. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. I love doing these interviews because I like. It's like I know these stories, having these relationships with people with you guys, but it's always interesting because I want the people to know what I know without the like, obviously as friends. There's things that I would never share. We would never share. We have
Sure.
right intimate conversations being friends, but also a lot of times we're not afforded the platform sometimes to speak freely as far as write really cool stories, right?
Mm.
And the reason why is because not that you haven't done interviews, because we tons of people do interviews, but the interviews sometimes are so generic, right? It's so like, yeah,
Yeah.
Paul, so you worked on this movie. What was it like to get this song? And what was it like to work with this artist? But sometimes, depending on who the interviewee is, like cats like you and I talking, we have a edge than you in talking to the average person who works at radio or whatever, because not only we're friends, so our conversations come out a little different, and what we talk about, we share a little different. Like
Yeah.
I had a Warren G. I just did a Warren, interview with Warren G last week,
Right
and it
on.
was just natural. You could tell it was two friends having a conversation. The
Yeah.
way the stories were coming off, they were just coming off really dope, really good, and we just talking. And I like those kind of interviews because I don't want my interviews to ever sound generic or boring, or you could have got this information from anywhere or these stories from anywhere. I don't want that kind
Right.
of
Right.
information.
I mean, anytime I get interviewed, mostly I'm thinking like, oh, I could have done it better. I'm thinking about how I would have done it. You know what I mean? No, I feel you. I mean, I think, I'm like, oh, that was good. I was like, yeah, why didn't you should have asked me? We're like this. You kind of get pigeonholed a little bit by the questions sometimes, you know.
Yeah, for sure, for sure,
You don't
for
necessarily
sure.
give. You're not able to, like you said, make it as entertaining as you could, you know. But there's a good interviewee can also maybe just like sure, pull the side sweep it and be like, yeah, that's
Yep,
your question, but I'm gonna free frame it like this and get the good stuff in there too, you know. But
yep.
man, you're incredible at this, and I just want to give you your flowers, bro. I want to give you your props.
Oh,
I
thank
was
you, man.
I was so proud and so honored to know you, and so thrilled when I heard the biggest rapper in the world, top three biggest artists in the world in the Super Bowl, arguably the biggest artist in the world, shout you out, man, and for your skills. And it made me also feel like, yeah, I was right. Because I've been calling people that are dope since day one, and I was
For
always
sure.
uh, such a fan of you and your music, and always expected and wanted you to like pursue that longer and farther. But I'm happy for you that it's a grimy industry. Maybe it wasn't really for you. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
To pursue it in that way. Maybe you'll come back to it, man. You know what I mean? Maybe you'll find a love for the art and
Yeah,
start releasing music again. Maybe you already are. I don't know, but
it's
but
see, it's funny. I'm glad that you said that, because I've been finding my way back, like kind of
yeah,
like in a way that it's more so not in survival mode though. Like before, it was like I got to make the money because this is what I do for a living,
right.
right? And so you would kind of you'll find yourself sometime maybe doing songs that you really wouldn't do, or maybe collabing with people that you really wouldn't collab with. If you know what I mean,
Yeah,
and that didn't feel good at all. So, but now I'm in a space like I'm much better. I'm much more knowledgeable about the business. That's one. That's the major factor. I'm much more knowledgeable about the business and way more comfortable with saying no. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do that.
right,
You
right,
know,
right.
and that helped me a lot. So my content has changed a little bit. Obviously, my life has changed a lot. So,
Of course.
um, but it doesn't take away from the gift God gave me, which is rapping, which is rhyme, which is writing. You know what I mean?
Uh,
So I've been doing my thing on the low. We'll talk about some of the things here also, but I do look before we get into this interview. I'm glad you started the way you started because that's typically how I start my interviews. I want to give you your flowers, right? Um, Paul, my brother, um, since day one, since you and I met, you've been an amazing guy to me. You've been an amazing friend.
Thank you.
You always looked out. you always look to. Here's the plus in this business too. Not only have you always looked to try to put money in my pocket with good business, but you always just shared your life stories and career and amazing laughs with me. And I appreciate that mostly because in this business, friends fall by the wayside. They're not really authentic. It's not really genuine. But it's always been every time we hooked up or talked or chopped it up, it was always love. It was always like, this is my guy, it's my brother. You know what I mean? And I have to applaud you for that because in this business, and as long as I've been in this business, I don't meet a lot of Pauls. You understand what I'm saying? So
Appreciate
that
it.
that for me is an honor, and a pleasure to even share this time with you today and kind of give you your flowers to let you know, yo, cats like yourself is needed, and I'm so honored that we get a chance to talk today as much as we can in the time slot we can
Sure.
about your extensive life and career. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And kind of give it its just due, if that's possible, in this time frame.
We'll make it work. We'll fit it in. Well, I'll give you a little breakdown then. I'll give you a little. I'm gonna do it fast, and then we could cut it up like we said earlier, right? So, and we're gonna sidebar it later, me and you, about everything we're talking about with your music.
For sure.
But yeah, well, I was really blessed. My parents did something alternative and different, and they bought a home in the Crenshaw area, and I grew up in Baldwin Hills. So I was surrounded by Black music and culture
Mm.
as a young child and my whole life. And I didn't move there until I went away to college. So that really influenced me. In high school, I started hanging out with some cats that lived over kind of like by the Buddha Market on Slauson and Rimpau,
Mm.
kind of Nipsey's Hood or whatever. I get over by Marathon, and they were schooling me, they were clowning me because I was, even though I lived in that neighborhood, I was very much a white boy. I was very influenced by the music I heard as a kid. I was listening to Jackson 5, things like that. But also at the same time, my brother was really into rock, and that really influenced me. So I was really
Right.
listening to, like, old school Jimi Hendrix and
Mhm.
all this kind of classic rock, which I still love. That's like my guilty pleasure, so to speak. But and I was hearing Stevie Wonder and Jackson 5 and all this kind of music, and so and then I went away to college and started DJing, and that was early on, man. That was in the early '80s, So it
Yeah.
was like weren't a lot of people DJing yet, and so when I came back to LA, I just started like doing. I was trying to get in the industry and I trying to DJ and find my footing, and then I started doing street promotion. I started doing a friend of mine, Curtis Harmon, was at K Day. He was a DJ, and he said, "Oh, somebody
Dope.
wants me to like promote this stuff," and so I started doing street promotion. And I had a couple jobs. I had a job at Delicious Vinyl early on in their heyday, where I worked with like Young MC and Tone Loc and all the
Yeah.
early hits and Mellow Man Ace and all kind of stuff like that. And that's why I was just meeting everybody. It was such a small, Cypress Hill hadn't come out yet, but we were all friends and everything. And
Mhm.
so then, I started managing artists, and the first group I got a deal for was House of Pain,
Wait a
and then
minute.
the
Okay,
second
wait, wait.
was Far
I gotta
Side.
stop you. I gotta
Right.
stop you because
Yeah.
even in that little snippet you gave just now,
Yeah.
it's a lot of bars in there. I really don't want to miss nothing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
wait a minute. So okay, you we fell in love with hip hop and rock and music in general, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
right, and but you did you conscious like did you know like was there an intentional thing to work with inside of the business of music some kind of way or around the culture of music some kind of way?
That's funny because, and I always talk about this, not at all, but I was doing everything. When I was at college, I worked at the local record store and I was the 12-inch buyers for the DJs. I had like a little
Wow.
thing that I made, like, buy this 12-inch is good. Man Parrish, like I remember Man Parrish came out.
Yeah.
Down Bronx, I had written about that. So I had like a little newsletter that I made. I
Yep.
was booking concerts at the college. I was throwing dances, DJing, and also promoting the dances at the college. I was doing photography of some events like
Wow.
bands and things like that. So, I mean, I started promoting events at the club. There was like one club in the little town. I started working there and doing that. So I was between DJing and promoting events and concerts. And yeah, I was like, but I had no idea that there was career in that. It was a
Oh,
long
you
time
just kind of
ago.
was like living life and doing the things as they come.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay.
No idea that there were even careers. Like I wasn't exposed to that. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Well,
yeah,
not to cut you, but it's fair to say, I guess at that time there wasn't these careers are being built. It's not careers yet. This the
not hip
early
hop.
right, not hip hop.
Right, right,
Exactly.
right, right. There's like old school record guys and stuff. There's the
Right.
music business, but I don't know anything about that. I was never exposed to the entertainment industry
Yeah.
kid. So not really, but then I fell into it. When I moved back to LA, I was working at a little record store in Pico, a famous store like Crane's Records and like Pico and Redondo, Mid City, briefly.
Mhm.
Barely working there. The guy just felt bad for me. I was trying to get a job. And then I was DJing, I was getting shitty gigs. And then this guy came to me, or the guy came to the store and he worked at Arista, and I ended up getting an internship at Arista. So this is an important part
Oh
of the
wow.
conversation.
Was that something you talked up on, or it kind of just happened?
I asked him, I said, how do you get in the industry? Like, oh, you work at a record company? I was like, whoa, that's a job? I was kind of like in real time, like figuring it out. Like I had never even
Yeah.
thought about it. There was no plan. Me and my college roommate were doing a magazine at that time, and it was called the LA Informer. And we interviewed NWA, and we had 2 issues, but we did Queen Latifah in 1 issue on her first trip to LA, and we interviewed NWA
Wow.
right after Cuba left. So it was crazy. We have photos. And when we did the photo shoot with NWA, they were like, can we take out our guns for the photos? We were like, hell yeah. They were like, no magazine that said we could take out our guns yet. We were kind of like an Herb magazine, but before Herb,
That's crazy.
we didn't last. We did an article on like MSA, the Mexican Surf Skate Association from Venice, that block was up. We were just covering underground clubs.
Yeah, yeah.
Involved in the underground. There was an underground club scene in LA at that time. So anyway, that kind of
Really,
led.
it's just you were just completely in just completely
Oh,
engulfed in LA street culture. Period. Like
yeah,
across the board, hip hop,
yeah.
streets, black, Hispanic, whatever. Like LA, Mid City, West LA, South
Oh, yeah.
Central. It was just in great. The whole thing was just culture.
Well, when the street promotion company started, which was like,
Mhm.
I skipped a step real quick. So I got the job at Delicious. Then my man Matt Robinson, who had been hiring me to do big clubs, I started doing like Heavy D's listening party with 1,000 people. I started DJing like big hit parties all of a sudden.
Mhm.
And then I was working for him, and he had a deal with Island, and he hired me, but it didn't last. So then I have a job. So that's when
Oh.
I started the street promotion company. And then, from there, I was grinding and building everything up. You know what I mean? And then that led to the management company. Artists started coming to me. Like I said, House of Pain was one of the early
Oh,
ones.
so you naturally became. It wasn't like I'm consciously becoming a manager. As artists were coming to me, this is what the job was turned into.
Yeah, they asked me first. There was my first
Oh, okay.
was actually Vicky Calhoun. She sang background on Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I got her a deal with Quincy Jones' label, like a demo deal. That was my
Yeah.
very first client. And then after that, I met House of Pain. Well, I knew Everlast, but then Everlast came to me and said, "Hey, I need a manager." Everyone, I was in the scene. It was a
For
small
sure.
scene. The clubs like Water the Bush, I was involved as a promoter, was really influential. So, this is when I'm interning at Arista. I'm learning the business. So this
Yeah.
starting to. That's when the light bulb goes on. When I get the job, the internship at Arista, I go, "Oh yeah, this is what I'm going to do for my career. I'm going to work in the music
Oh,
industry, and I'm
because you're
learning the industry."
because
And
you're
at
in
the
the
same
business at
time,
the time.
what'd
Because
you
you're in
say?
the building, you're in the business, you're in the business and in the building at this time. So being in the building, surrounded by real business that covers music, you're like, oh, I can do this. I can do this. You know.
Well, I was learning, and it was like, but it was crazy because at the same time I was involved in like really important hip hop clubs, but I was like a scrub intern at the company, but my area was retail promotion, like making sure the stores had. So
Right.
you see, you're talking about the culture, like my job was, after that, I was so used to dealing with record stores. So yeah, I went everywhere, man. Like Rage Records, off Manchester, I believe. There was the famous guy in Inglewood. I'm blanking. I was like Royce Fortune Records. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
VIP Records on obviously, just turning theirs into a museum, which is incredible in Long Beach. But we had one on Crenshaw back in the day by like Adams. So I used to go to all these stores, and then the East Side. You know what I mean? Like you said too. And then eventually we brought in this guy E1, this Mexican guy, because we were kind of lacking on
Okay.
the side. You know, we were really
Yeah.
strong in my street promotion company was really strong in the hood. But what we really did first was we started promoting in Hollywood, because before me there were
Yeah.
the OG street promoters in LA, and I'm gonna break this down, and no one can argue with me. Is
Mm.
Scotty Spencer and Doug Young, and these guys were killing it. They worked for like Priority and you know later Interscope, but all these you know and they killed the hood, right?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Podcast came in, and I was part of this new underground club scene and everything in Hollywood and downtown, and I promoted to that vibe. And they caught on. We're all friends, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, they put me up on hood stuff, and I, you know, kind of, you know, it wasn't that straightforward, but you know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. Right.
I was really big in that scene, and my company was one of the first to really start promoting hard into the in areas was it wasn't the hood, you know, to promote hip hop. And then like the record labels would see our stuff more because we post by in Hollywood by their place,
Right.
or they might go to the clubs or whatever, you know. So you
Man.
know,
Okay. Okay. That's dope. So okay. At this point, you find yourself in the business of music. You're in the
yeah,
building the Arista, right?
right.
And you're kind of like fiddling with management a little bit, right? And do you?
No, a little after. What happens is at that time I'm DJing these clubs. Like, oh, I
Okay.
was going to tell you a story about Arista. Okay, so I deal in retail stores, right? And
Hmm.
but I'm the lowest person in the whole thing, you know. And one time, Violet Brown, who was huge in the industry, you know,
I remember Bobby Brown. Yep.
she was the buyer for the whole warehouse chain. So you can imagine how important this person is
For
to
sure.
my bosses, my
Yep.
direct bosses, right?
Yep.
One time she calls the office and asks for me because she wants me to put her on the guest list for Water the Bush or whatever, this club. And
Ah.
I do it or whatever. And when after the call goes, I get called into the boss's office. They're like, what the fuck is, and it's not like a good thing. They're like, did you try to reach her on your own? Or are you trying to like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? I'm
Right.
like, no, man, I'm part of the culture. Like, you know, she's hitting me up for shit. And they were just kind of like bedazzled. Like, they didn't even figure out how to take advantage of anything like that either. It's weird.
Right.
I didn't last there that long, you know. But, you know, what happened was I got my first job. Big shout out to Orlando again, Mike Ross, and the team at Delicious Vinyl, because they gave me my first job. And what's crazy is that allowed me to move out of my parents' house because at that
Okay.
time
Oh, dope. Dope. Okay.
my mom will appreciate this part of the thing. Yeah, you know, it was like I was struggling. I had got out of graduated from college, didn't know what I was going to do, was living in Crenshaw. My parents are like, "Come on, man. You know, I'm way past 18. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
Whatever, you know,
Yeah.
together, kid, you know." And I didn't know I was kind of the black sheep. I didn't until I found that gig. Then I went to Workaholic, and then you know, and then I started
Ah. Yeah. Okay.
personality where if I didn't want to do it, I didn't do it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so, right. So, you know, after that thing, then I was just on a tear. You know, so I went to Delicious. That didn't work out. I mean, it worked out. It was great. I'm sorry, but I got that better offer to go to my Matt Robinson's label Island.
Okay.
That didn't work out. So that's when I started PNP Street Promotions. Then the management clients started coming. So then
Oh,
everything is getting serious. You know what I mean? Now I'm an
yeah.
entrepreneur running a street promotion company slash management company slash party promotion company. You know what I mean? You know, right off Melrose, across the street from Steve Rifkin, where he started Loud Records.
Yeah.
It was
Loud records. Yep. Yep.
Loud Records though. It was the SRC right then,
Yep.
and I
Yep.
shared offices with Delicious Vinyl. So
Damn. Okay. Okay. Did you? And at this point, for sure you're going to be doing this long term. Oh, you at least want to do this long term.
yeah, I don't
Are you
know anything
thinking,
else to
you
do.
thinking
I
career,
never,
right?
I never knew anything else to do. I was all in by that point.
Right. Right.
I remember when I lost the job at the Island at Matt Robinson's company, I thought I was just going to get a job at Jive or some other hip hop
Mhm.
label. I thought I had done a lot and nobody cared, you know. But that's when I blew up, you know, because that's when I found House of Pain. And then, you know, I was
Yeah.
able to keep them as a management client very long due to, you know, a lot of circumstances, and me being so new and green to the industry. But it's documented and, you know, he says that I got him their deal. But then I found the far side and I found a young black attorney that had my back and he helped me
Mhm.
get them signed to management clients. And so then I got the far side their deal. And then I was on a roll. Then I found Coolio and Warren G. and around that time, right after Coolio, that's when I met John Singleton. So that's
Okay,
when
wait.
okay. And I'm sorry, I skipped one step.
Huh?
After the street promotion company been going for a while, right before I worked for John Singleton, I was blessed to work for Ice Cube Street Knowledge. He hired me. I went in house.
Word.
I did marketing and promotion for Street Knowledge, and this is when I was like the Far Side's manager, and that's where I met Coolio.
Yeah.
There were WC, like his hype man,
Wow.
right? And that's when my role started. You know what I mean? So then I met John. He brought me in over there. I did Poetic Justice, my first movie, and I was becoming a big deal. And then Def
Damn.
Jam
So
label. I signed Montel Jordan. Yeah.
let me ask you. Let me ask you this. So that reminds me of actually a question I was going to ask you. I was
Mhm.
going to ask you that you always been like I guess the proverbial bridge from culture to corporate, right?
Mm. Mm.
And because to think, I'm thinking of these are the earlier days in rap where they're still trying to figure out what this structure looks like, what the infrastructure of hip hop even looks like, business wise, right? And you're in it early enough. You're in it early enough for them to not. They don't have no reach to these people or the culture or the heartbeat of whatever this thing is, in a sense, unless it was somebody like yourself in the building. Is what I
Sure,
mean.
but no, for sure. And I mean, but we were all so young too. Like all of
Yeah,
the
for
young
sure.
kind of like Chris Lighties and Dante Rosses
Yeah.
and later Shakir. Oh man, one thing I wanted to talk about, but we'll get into that later. But
Mhm.
the stress of the industry, and I was thinking about a lot of people that aren't here with us anymore
Oh yeah, 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 for sure. We
who
definitely get into that for sure.
self-created or whatever. But um the thing for me, man, is just like, I was at that point in time when my career was really first starting to take off and everything like that. It was moving fast. I took on that role graciously, like, oh, I'm a white guy from Crenshaw. I grew up in a nice neighborhood. I'm like easy in both worlds. So it's like,
Right.
I'm comfortable in the corporate. I have no problem going to the hood. The corporate people feel comfortable with me. So it's like a no brainer, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like, but at the same time, though, I wasn't that savvy. I wasn't the shark. And also, I mean, there's a lot of guys who I love, like Chris Lighty and Steve Rifkin, that were so much sharper than me in a business sense. I was the culture guy still. You know what I mean? I wasn't,
Yeah.
I was smarter on a business sense than all my artist friends and stuff like that. But I didn't quite have the business acumen.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had so much success early on, and a lot of things kind of flowed somewhat naturally. Though I did pay a lot of dues, but it
For
wasn't like
sure.
and I didn't have the right partnerships. You look at a lot of these successes, like the Russell had the Leor. You got to have that. You got to have that on your side, so that
Yeah, for
I,
sure. That's solid. Yeah.
right. Minus the funny stuff, I was like Russell without Leor. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was the creative without the business shark, but I
Right. Right.
grew to deal with what I had to do, and it made me a better business person, and no regrets, because I always did such artist friendly business the whole way, so I get love from everybody. And like you said,
For
and just
sure.
like I extended love to you, man, was just like real recognizes real, man. Like, you're super talented. you know, Look at the people that are singing your praises. I mean, whoa. So I mean, like, of course, someone like myself is going to want to befriend you when we meet, and try to offer value, and you know what
Yeah,
I
for
mean,
sure.
be a
For
good
sure.
dude, or whatever. But
Let me ask you this:
yeah,
being that you were you had a lot of these groups early on, right, in the
yeah,
streets, also in the streets, and also in these offices, right.
yeah,
A lot of people didn't have access to the offices, right? They had access to the streets, whatever, But what kind of challenges kind of rose for you at that time, trying to make things happen at the time, dealing with a corporate structure, a business structure on whatever that looks like at the time, and then people basically all these people we're naming are this all new to the business, so they don't know none of
sure.
the actual business
I
stuff. Like,
got a good story that I think
okay,
articulates great. It's a Warren G story. It's funny
okay,
that you had him on, because I know he didn't tell this story. Okay, so, I mean, first off, man, Warren gives me a lot of props, and I love Warren. And he knows it because when I met Warren, man, he could leave his car parked running on the street, wasn't nobody stealing that hoopty. I mean, he had tape keeping, I'm not dissing him. He had tape keeping his,
Right, right.
he was broke. You know what I mean?
For
And when
sure.
he got that whole his whole documentary gets all sad and he's sleeping. That's when I met him, like right there.
Word.
You know what I mean? So and all those other people had taken off that he put on, and all, you know what I mean. So, but Warren, man, I heard his stuff and I was just so blown away and everything. You know what I mean? And that was such an important signing for me and such an important moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But wait, I'm sorry, I kind of got sidetracked about
Talk
what I
about
was.
I'm sorry. Talk about some of the not struggles, but some of the.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
Okay.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. So, I meet Warren. I hear his stuff. It's this kind of famous story where, like, we're at the studio, Death Row Studios. He sees this white guy. He doesn't know who the fuck I am. He's like, and I was with John Singleton though.
Okay.
So, or he had seen me another time with John Singleton, maybe. So he was like, "Hey, cuz, I got my own stuff." We go out to the truck, and he plays me Indo Smoke. And it's funny because I heard only like the first verse and the hook, and like the second hook came right in or something. And I just ejected the tape. It was a cassette. We're in my Ford Explorer, and I was like, "Whoa, we're signed. We're putting this on Poetic Justice. We're signed." And he thought I was like gaslighting him. You know what I
Right.
mean? He thought I was just gassing him up. And he was offended that I ejected the tape at the time. Where I was trying to show him how dope I thought, how already I knew was a smash. Like my ears are, bro, I'm in.
Right,
We're
right.
done. This is
I'm
on
sold already. Right.
I already sold. That was my thing. Like it was bugging. Why'd you turn it off? If you really liked it, you listen to it. But anyway,
Right.
the next day I called him with John and he believed me. You know what I mean? So I was managing Warren and and so for this brief amount of time I got him the Def Jam deal and Sylvia Rhone called me.
Mhm.
I had a relationship with Sylvia Rhone. And she was like, "Oh, you got that hot producer, Warren G. I want him to remix my new artist, her first single, Brandy, I Want to Be Down."
Wow.
So played the song for Warren. Warren came up with a loop and everything that he was going to
Mhm.
use. The day was scheduled. He was getting 10 racks, which was a lot of money back then. He had
Right,
just
right,
gotten
right.
a deal and gotten a big check, but hadn't
Yeah.
gotten a lot of other checks outside of that. But he was living it up. So the day the
Wow.
studio comes, he's not answering. He's late. He showed up. Sylvia Rhone's blowing me
Wow.
up. Can you imagine?
That's crazy.
And wait, then I finally get him on the phone. Warren, what are you doing? You're 2 hours late for the studio with Sylvia Rhone. Cause I couldn't give that beat to her. I need that for the Twins album. Studio canceled. No 10 grand. No commission for me. No, never working with
What?
Rhone again.
Yo, I can't wait to tell him this. Remind him of this. That's
He
crazy.
don't remember that shit at all. He might dispute it, but it's definitely true. I got some PMP employees that'll vouch for it.
Yo, somebody asked here,
Yes.
said, what are your thoughts about how music videos have evolved over time? And do you have any good stories involved? So first of all, shout out to my man Austin. That's my guy, me and Austin. He's a ridiculously good director.
Right.
Me and him have a pilot together also.
Okay.
That I got to give it to you, Paul, and show you that. Also, pull up on you and show you
Yeah.
that when you're back in the country, when you're back out
Yeah.
here, I'll show you. Yeah, what are your thoughts about music videos and how they evolved over time? And do you have any good stories involving music videos in your involvement?
Let's do a whole nother podcast about my stories from the videos. But let's talk about my thoughts on involvement. Well, I come from an era, man, like when we did Coolio's Fantastic Voyage video, that was F. Gary Gray's first video. And Tommy Boy, who was notoriously cheap, spent 100 grand, which was the most expensive rap video ever at that moment,
Wow.
on the video for Fantastic Voyage. And it paid off in, like crazy, But
Yeah.
after that, the Hype Williams phase came in. People paying like 500,000 for videos, and things got crazy, and and then the budgets completely tanked. But at the same time, the technology is so much cheaper and
Yeah.
easier. There's all
Yeah,
these
for
young,
sure.
talented, like upcoming directors with cameras and Final Cut and in their computer, and their or another editor who's dope or whatever, and So, I mean, I think, to be honest, like as somebody who usually doesn't have 500,000 to spend on videos and things like that, I appreciate that the cost of making great visuals came down. You
Yeah, for
know,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think that and I think there's a lot of creativity in music videos today, and there was in its heyday. It's funny, you look at the old videos and they're so bad. You know what I mean? But like, from like the Run DMC days or whatever. But I think, I love music videos. It's kind of, I feel it's a little sad is that it's not as important as it used to be, but it's important. I think
yeah,
there's it's
yeah,
very important. I think artists that disregard it are tripping. You know what I mean? And you got to have
yeah.
that videographer in your squad on your team. Like
It,
ideally, look out for the directors. Like to your man's point, make sure
and I used
look
and I
out for
used to
them.
think, and I used to. Well, me and my friends, we obviously had conversations about this for the video, right? And it is the music video done with, or all these things because but
No,
people. I know I understand that, but people, but the thoughts can come from we don't have unless you're like on YouTube. A lot of people don't have we don't have any shows anymore that showcase what are like the top videos, or
that's
you're
dead.
showing a video every day, right?
Yeah,
So, but what I do understand is that well, musically behind the scenes, people still shoot videos. It's a big thing, right? But
yeah.
also,
Visuals are important.
that's what I'm saying. So to that point, visuals are so important. Finding the best way to display it is the game, right? It's like I can't just afford to do a video riding around in my car and I get the aerial shot, and,
Right.
and that's it,
Well, right. I mean, for example, like, look, I'm gonna give you two really disparate examples. Right. We have a lot of street artists that up in their hood, in their barrio, and they shoot a video with a bunch of their homeboys outside. They show notorious places in their community, maybe
Yep.
show how they ain't scared to be outside. And people are interested in this stuff, and those videos can be very effective and can be shot
Right.
for next to nothing, especially if you have a talented young director and editors and stuff like that. Maybe some visual effects and stuff like that going on. Then you got the extreme. You got Kendrick Lamar, man. This guy's releasing music
Yeah.
that's like exploding on a sales
Mhm.
level, all of the charts. Then he'll drop a visual to it later and give it this huge bump, and his visuals are just like cinematic work
Incredible.
of art. Oh my
Incredible.
god, man! What
And I think that's the key too.
guys are doing. And look, I'm honored because my eye is incredible because I discovered Dave Myers and he tells the story too. I helped just find a lot.
Wow.
Like I told you, we gave F. Gary Gray his first music video, Dave Myers his first music
Wow.
video, and really pulled his demo reel out of a pile. Hired Paul Hunter super early on. Worked with a lot of really talented directors early in their day. So like having that visual eye was always really important for me as well. You got another
Yeah,
question?
yeah, and I think which kind of gives you an edge when it comes to, I guess, artists you connect with, right? Having
Yeah.
that kind of vision, or at least also not only having the vision, but having the talent to see talent. Well, that's vision in itself,
Right,
right?
right.
And where did you? What was that like? Let me ask you this:
Understanding
what was
the
your
people.
first placement on television or film as far as music, like something that you had your hand directly in and
Oh,
placed this?
I got a good story. I got a good story.
Okay, let's hear it.
So, I didn't know shit about music placement, right? And I was DJing on the set of a TV show because I had this crazy gig where I DJ on the set of the Fresh Prince TV show, which led to me DJing on the set of the Martin Show, which led to me DJing on the set of Out All Night, Patti LaBelle Show, and
I remember that.
that's
Yeah,
why
hold
I met John Singleton.
on.
And he came up there and he was impressed with me, and I invited him to an unsigned showcase that I did, and he came to that, and it was at the Roxy, and it was like sold out. We had like Coolio's group, the 40 Thieves, performed, the Wascals,
Yeah.
Far Side performed. Big Boy wasn't on the radio yet, but he was like the host or whatever.
Mhm.
And John was so impressed. He told me that night. He said, "Hey, I want to hire you to run my label and music supervise my new movie, Poetic Justice." So that was my first involvement
What?
in music and film, right? So, but what some of the things I did in the movie that are really cool, and just I'm gonna say one anyway, is that so I was managing Coolio, but he hadn't come out yet, and
Mhm.
and in the movie where Tupac says twice, different times, he's playing music, and he said this is his cousin from the Bay Area.
Yeah.
It's actually Tupac's unreleased demos that are playing. So that was like,
Oh wow.
you know, and then obviously I brought Indo Smoke and I brought the Nice and Smooth. I brought a bunch.
Damn.
Yeah. The
That's,
Dog Pound song, and
let me ask you this, okay? Because we're still skipping here, but it's so much. The reason why, and it's so, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's so much that we gotta connect some dots.
Okay.
Did we get into how'd you meet? How'd you meet and how'd you build out the relationship you have with John Singleton? Rest in peace.
Right. So, like I said, I was on the set of a TV show,
Mhm.
DJ, Out All Night, Patti LaBelle show.
Yep. Right. Yep.
I tried to visit somebody on the set. He saw this young guy, white guy playing DJ, and he liked what I was playing. He came over, introduced himself to me. I was obviously, thrilled to meet him. This is
Mhm.
after Boys in the Hood.
Right.
So I obviously know who he is, and uh, it was quite. It was like 30 years ago, so my memory's like. But one way or another, I believe I got his number, and I invited him to this showcase.
Okay.
Unless I had a flyer on me or something.
Mm.
But it was at the Roxy. It was unsigned artist showcase, and it was like packed. It was sold out, and he came up there, and he said, "You put this on?" And I said, "Yeah." And it was my company, PMP. At that time, I was managing Coolio, Far Side,
Mm.
called Shakespeare and Lumberjack, a bunch of groups. You know what I mean? A few that made it and a few that didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Coolio and Far Side being definitely the strongest. I might have, and I might already have. No, I didn't. I picked up Lighter Shade Brown after that. But anyway,
Okay.
he came to that thing. He saw that, and he was like, "Yo, I want you to run my label and music supervise my new movie." It was just the thing is like, look, I think one thing is that like we have like 20 some years of the internet and people like more than that.
Yeah.
Really,
Yep.
people like seeing people like Puff. He's a bad example, but young entrepreneurs in the music business or whatever,
Mhm.
and seeing this thing. So now it's very common, and it's like we have a lot of that. But like at that time, there was no internet or anything like that. You know what I
Right.
mean? And there weren't a lot of me's around. There weren't a lot of people that were putting on these kind of events. You know what I mean? Active in the community, in the hip hop
Mhm.
community like that. So, and John, being the visionary that he was, like he didn't really want to hire a established music supervisor. He wanted to use he's like, I don't need any of that from my music supervisor. I want an A&R. I want him to go out and find me music. I'm going to deal with how I put it in the film.
Right. Right.
That's not. I don't need him for that. You know what I mean? But I do. He got put with somebody on Boys in the Hood because it was his first movie. Wasn't like a love relationship, so to speak. You know what I mean? So then he was looking for his own person, right place, right time. Came in working hard, busting ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Delivering. He gave me the opportunity very quickly. And then I just tried to deliver. I was available. Oh, we're gonna go meet with Suge and Snoop. It's 8 o'clock at night.
Damn.
Call my girlfriend and tell her like I'm not gonna see you, babe. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I was some fabulous, like I was running around with John Middleton. I was his right hand music guy, so I had to like jump into that role, because
Yeah. Yeah.
before that I was like Ice Cube's like street marketing guy. I worked in the dungeon in the '60s at Street Knowledge. And now I'm in the Sony lot. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm in Culver City. I'm next to John Singleton. I'm meeting all these important white people and stuff. I'm like the Emperor's New Clothes. I don't know what a music supervisor does. I'm like, I'm trying to pull it all off. But, that's where my business acumen started to kick in, and I started to really elevate a little bit. But I banged my head on the wall a lot of ways going still. So
Did you well, even now, was how'd you feel about managing at the time? Maybe now. Okay, let's talk about now and then. Like
okay.
managing, was it a thing where you actually like to do?
That's a great question. It's kind of a love-hate relationship, because I made so many people famous and then they fired me before all the real money came in. In fact, like,
Uh,
unnamed with like SkyTel pager bills, and they're like, they went on to great.
Yeah.
I lost money. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it led to everything good. So I mean,
Mhm.
like, and also too, like when it goes good, it's great. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
when it's cranking and all, and I would like to do it again. But it would have to be the right artist, and and all that. You know what I'm saying? But definitely, I think it's a better time to be a manager almost now in a way. Like before, when we were doing it was good because the major labels were breaking bread and they didn't understand the art yet, like you said. So you'd go in
Right.
and do a demo for somebody, and okay, and there's no internet to test things on. There's no way to see if things, you know what I mean? Like Mike Karen came in later and started signing regional things that were blowing up, but that had
Yeah.
yeah, hip hop hadn't really spread that big regionally yet. So most of it's still coming out of the big mega centers like New York or LA. You know what I mean? So
Do,
yeah,
do you notice now, with 2025,
yeah,
um, and working through, let's take now 2025, and then let's take the height of like hip hop is starting to sell. It's a massive thing. It's about to go global. Like these
sure,
are the '90s, right? This is what
yeah,
the
yeah,
'90s
yeah,
is about.
yeah, yeah,
And then going into the early 2000s. But the '90s really going into that is that it's taking it to the bank. People are making money.
yeah,
It's on TV. Movies are being made. It's the
sure,
'90s.
sure.
Um, what what are some of the biggest shifts you've seen in the industry from
Mm,
musically, from the '90s and
yeah,
maybe nowadays, and how music is, whether packaged, sold, whatever. Like
yeah,
what
yeah.
are some of the biggest shifts you think?
Well, I mean, I think it was a super corporate thing. Like I said before, we're getting like crumbs on the dollar from the money we're making these major companies. We're giving up most of the rights. We make
Mm,
money from touring. You know what I mean? We
yeah,
probably do a merch deal early on and give up a lot of those rights. We're not doing that in house like people do now. You know what I mean? We're like doing the publishing deal early, which isn't the worst thing, like people always paint it too, because somebody's got to collect your publishing,
yeah,
and and it's like, they don't always recoup. So if they didn't recoup, you won. You know what I mean, or whatever. But and also, I mean, but so we were giving up all of our major income sources early on. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's just the entrepreneurship of it now. You can like what a guy like Chance the Rapper did back then when that happened,
mhm,
or a guy like Russ now or whatever. You know what I mean? Just like the entrepreneurial opportunities for a smart manager and a good artist, you know what I mean, are really
yeah,
like bigger now because you can build the brand and you can do it independently of these major companies, or you can have partnerships with the major companies too. I mean, like there was that era where like Chris Lighty was really doing his things, and the Vitamin Waters and all these companies are just writing huge checks, and CDs are still selling and all that.
yeah,
But right after that, the streaming thing came in, and then it was like the marketing, the brand thing changed a lot too because of social media. So it's like, oh, show us what you. Now we see, oh, influencers are getting more than you.
for
More
sure.
views than you. Like we'll hire them or something, or whatever. More options. But
And
I
that's
think it's better now. There's more opportunities now. There's more if you're a good entrepreneur. Before we were just
because
playing
of
with
social media. You think?
yeah, we were just playing with the
Mhm.
house money. We couldn't we couldn't
Yeah, you didn't even know people. The average artist didn't even know who to. If you're in the streets, you didn't even know who to talk to or how to get music anywhere or heard or anything.
in some regards, those off markets like the Bay Area and the Louisianas did better because they didn't have
Yeah,
and they were forced to out the trunk it. And then and that day when you CD sales, whoa, you could clown, But so
yeah,
that's the whole thing has changed. But now it's like to me, it's a super fan culture. Like build up your Patreon, super see your super fans, and build those up and make a nice living from what you're doing on top of everything else. And like don't worry about playing the game so much. And if it comes to you, great. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
I study everything. Now, if you want to go, I think we got a bunch of questions too, but up
yeah.
to
No,
you.
I do want to ask you just one question. Talking about music or talking about scenes, and which we're going to get into syncing also in this conversation. Um, Austin asked, when you choose the music for a scene or a sequence, what comes first for you? The emotional tone, the lyrics, or the cultural context of the song, or is it any of those things?
Well, that's a great question. My job is to facilitate the vision of, in a film, the director, and in TV, often producers, showrunners,
Mm,
network execs. So, and the process is vastly different in every scenario. Sometimes I'm dumping a bunch of music to editors that they can use and they're picking it. Other times they're giving us a scene and going, yeah, what works here? You know what I mean?
mm,
So, I mean, to me, it's funny because I've worked on big shows as a consultant with other big music supervisors, and we're like going with the showrunners and they're playing like three different versions of the scene with different songs. And I don't necessarily always agree with everybody. It tends to like usually feel kind of universal when something works to picture, but it can
yeah,
mean many different things. I mean, for me, man, it's just like I love to work with directors or visionaries of any sort, showrunner, whatever, who like to use music in creative and interesting ways,
yeah,
and because to me the music, the way it's used is even more important, is going to be more important than the music used. Because if you use great music, but you use it
mm,
poorly, you're not even going to feel it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But you could have like some mediocre shit, but it's used great. It's going to have more effect.
yeah,
So working with like people that are talented. So my job is to make them happy. So different directors are completely different, or showrunners. So and every situation is really unique depending on if it's some kind of like a reality show. Is it like
right.
a heavy drama? Like I did that movie with ASAP Rocky recently, with Denzel's son. That was a heavy drama, you know
Oh
what I
no,
mean?
okay.
And so we, like you don't want to fuck around on those scenes, you know what I mean, or
Right,
whatever. And
sure.
that was with the great we had a real vision, you know what I mean? So,
Do you have do you have a I'm off script here. Do
yeah,
you
go ahead.
have oh, I was asking, so I want to ask you, because we're not going to do the opposite of that because this is not the type of show. What are some of the absolute favorite people you like to work with? Maybe select, and it could be from an artist standpoint. It could be from just business in the music industry. No, you know what? No, I want to talk about the artists. Who was an absolute maybe joy to work with,
Mm.
if any? Hell. Especially
Oh,
at that time.
well, I really miss working with John Singleton, man. R.I.P. John.
Ah, yeah, man.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't get the chance to meet him, but that definitely is one of the guys I didn't want to I want to meet, and I'm so man. It's funny talking to you about him, and I
Yeah.
talked to my man Kareem Grimes. He talks about John all the time,
Yeah.
and you just keep hearing how much of an amazing person he was.
Yeah, he was great to work with, man. He was
Yeah.
really great to work with. You know, it's funny because like when we did um Fast and Furious 2, I worked on that with him,
Hmm.
and All-Star Weekend was right when he was in post, and he got the studios to pay for me and him to go out to Atlanta for
Hmm.
All Star Weekend, and we met with like the Neptunes and like Outcast and like Little
Wow.
John, like so many people.
Hmm.
Everybody was there. Ti before he was famous, David Banner before he was famous, like all these people, right? And um, and the studio was like, "You're wild," you know what I mean? Like, the all sure you want to go to All Star Weekend, John? You want us to pay for it, you know what I mean? But he was,
Right.
and he said it
Right.
4 seasons, I'll go get some food joint. But he got it paid for. We went out there, we had a blast, and it was one of the most important networking times of my life. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I hooked
Yeah.
up with so many
Yeah.
people. I took Rick Rubin to Atlanta one time, and I think it was after that because I had gotten really cool with Little John. I knew Little John, but I gotten much cooler with Little John.
Yeah.
Yeah, But so that was a really important. I met Jason Jeter and Ti before they were famous. Like I said, Banner before he David Banner. So that was incredible. And then oh man, and then after when I first met John, after he had just rapped Poetic Justice, he took me, him, and Tupac to Freaknik for like the weekend or whatever. So
What?
yeah, yeah.
How was
So
that? I don't need all details. I just mean, was it good fun or what, like?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no wild details, you know. I mean, it's wild because Pac was obviously a big deal and famous black man in the movie. He was in
Right. Right.
Juice. That was
Yeah,
after
for
Juice,
sure.
but his
Yep.
music wasn't popping in the South.
Right. Yeah, 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 for sure.
They weren't on him like that. It
Yeah.
was nothing like people could imagine. So people were on him, and then of course people were on John Singleton. You know what I mean? So we're rolling around in a limo like royalty. You know what I mean? But it was like it was also like I was on their time, doing whatever they wanted to
Mhm.
do, and but it was a blast. Yeah, I mean Freaknik was wild, man. I mean it was just all these young people coming from black people coming from all over the United States. So anybody who went to Freaknik, it was wild.
And I
Uh,
want to, I want to partake. I never got a chance to go. I want to partake, and
Well, I went with Tupac. No, yeah, but no, but it wasn't as wild as you would think, though. It wasn't that glorious, but it was great. That was the most time I spent with Tupac because there's so
that's
much
dope.
traffic
Okay.
in Atlanta, so we're spending
Mhm.
all this time riding around in the back of that limo. Oh, and the crazy
All
part of
right.
that story is Biggie's song had just come out, "Party and Bullshit," and Pac played it the whole weekend. Nothing else.
Really?
Nothing else. He made us listen to that song the whole weekend. I mean, I wasn't mad, but after a while, I was kind of like, "Damn, Pac, like, what else we
But,
got?"
but, but I think that's dope because it just talks about what he felt about early on.
Yeah, and you know what? I was fucking with it, but I fell in love. Biggie's my favorite artist. I fell in love with Biggie after that when that first album came out. I was like, "Whoa!" Like that song got me, but I was like, he obviously, you know,
Yeah.
knew more than do, and I was kind of like, "Yeah, it's dope," but yeah, he was like, he just kept playing,
Damn.
kept playing over and over.
Um,
Yeah.
I do want to ask you, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see young artists or producers making right now?
Mm, mm. I think like you have to be consistent. Like you can't not release for a long time. Like you gotta do your social media and marketing side, man. You can't ignore that.
Right.
Even if you're not a social media person, you gotta figure out a strategy for it that you can do. Even if it's small. And if you got 20 fans, man, try to build with them 20 fans. You can't be aloof. You can't think it's too cool to interact with your fans. Get down there and mingle with them fans, man. And show them love. How few or many you have, and
Yeah.
just but consistency is the main thing. You know what I mean? And don't be greedy. 100% of nothing ain't worth nothing. Partner with good people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mean, you're gonna have to break bread. Try to be smart. So, it's like a lot. Like you look at so many people, like the Dr. Dre's, like the richest people in the industry, were in like shitty deals at first, but it's like they had the presence or the foresight, or not the foresight. They had the intelligence to later get out of it, and So,
Yeah.
but if
Sure.
you and they weren't even like this, but if you go into deals like that, but you realize what you're doing, like a lot of people do, like, okay, this isn't the best deal, but it's the best deal being offered to me right now. How can I take advantage of it? So, that's something that people have to be realistic about. Understand what's going on in the industry. Like, what is the kind of like what are like independent label deals like? What are like understand what are like the normal kind of like things in the industry, and then you'll know if you're getting a really bad deal, or study the business a little bit, but stay consistent with releasing and posting music, or you're not going to win. That's the main thing.
When you say that, well, I thought about a couple of things, which I think one, yeah, you're first of all, you're one of the first person I heard say, because this question has been asked before, obviously, but you're one of the first person I heard say how maybe you should try to do that. Maybe you should push through that. Just go through this right now until you learn what you need to learn or whatever. Because I think that's the problem. And I can only speak from hip hop because that's the genre I dwell in, right? So from a hip hop standpoint, it's kind of like it's like we were told every generation. Well, let me say my generation and under me, we were all told the horror stories of the business, right?
Right.
People getting robbed, bad contracts.
Right.
People don't know about publishing rights and all these things, right? So we came in kind of like somewhat
Everything's a
knowing
scam.
it's right. Everything's a scam, right? But I think the dangerous, if I can say, that's why I think I agree with what you're saying. I think I agree with what you're saying. The dangerous part of that is thinking the industry just a scam and everybody's going to rob you.
Right.
I'm not saying that's not. There's some truth to that, right? I'm not saying there's not
Yeah.
truth to that, but I think the beauty in it is it's like my OGs in a sense didn't necessarily prep me right for the business.
Right.
Now the stuff I went through is because my common sense told me that it's okay. I'm gonna take this on the chin now.
Right.
Pause. I'm gonna take this on the chin now, but I'm gonna once I get my bearings and I get my name of whatever, that's
Sure.
not gonna happen to me again.
Right.
But a lot of people don't hear that. They come into business thinking, let's sidestep. This is an example of what I'm trying to say. I don't know if you remember that group. It wasn't even a group. I think it was a group. The three girls, and they had that song that went viral called "I'm a Boss Ass Bitch."
Oh yeah,
Bitch,
of
bitch.
course, of course, of
Remember that?
course. Love that.
So that song went viral, right? Millions and millions of views.
Yep.
Nicki Minaj ended up getting the record
Yeah. Yeah.
and wanted to put a verse on it
Yeah.
because she liked the viral record and figured if this don't help, I don't know what. Like you know what I mean, it's Nicki Minaj at the
Right.
peak of who she is,
Right.
and they tried to threaten to sue because she didn't ask for permission or pay or whatever, and that's prime example of they're not being mentored the right way.
Not understanding their leverage. You got to understand
Yeah,
your leverage in the situation.
exactly.
That's one of the main things I try to teach artists is like, look, that's the thing. Like, it's like, look, also like if we're talking about signing deals that are not maybe like ideal, like is it like going to keep you in that forever? Well, I'm going to be really careful. Is it like, are you going to be able to get out of it in the fairly near future? We're like, okay, like I said, what else do you have on the table? And look, it's really hard to give this kind of advice because it's all a case by case scenario too. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, 100%, 100%.
This is what I talk about a lot.
Mhm.
Like in my era, we were signing napkins. Like we had no fear. They're like, we're like, what? The industry is shady. The next generation here's all this stuff. Here's all these things. So your generation, everything is voodoo.
Yeah.
All contracts are shady. Like so, for example, with licensing, it's perfect segue. When I get independent artist license for a song, I'm gonna send you a license to sign. It's gonna be a standard form from HBO or Netflix
Mhm.
or wherever I'm doing the show, typically, right? It's the same terms that the major labels agree to.
Mhm.
I cannot negotiate the license. I can't change language. It's a form license. This was
For
given
sure.
to me by the corporate overlords that I work for. These are the terms. Now, there's nothing bad in them. You
Mhm.
keep complete ownership of everything. This only allows them to use the song in this capacity in the film or TV, whatever, right? There's nothing
Mhm.
bad about it. But because people think, and it's written in legalese, could be 4 to 7 pages long. People see that they want to start crossing stuff out. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
time and place. You got to understand. No, this is a standard license. So if you understood the business enough to know that this, then you wouldn't ask for that. Or people try to go, oh, that's not enough money. I should get this. Like, do you know how many independent artists there are that got good music that want to take this $1,000 or this 500 or whatever? You don't think that's enough money? Like, okay, you know what I mean? So it's just like,
It always
watch,
kills me how
yeah,
it always kills me how an artist who uh, haven't sold anything tried to tell you what the market on them is, like on their like what the like what's their look. Understand as an artist because I've done it. We have an
yeah,
idea in our head about a number we have if we were to sign or sell a verse or whatever, right? We have these, and I say unrealistic because they're not true to market, right? It's like there's no market for a new artist named Bad Luck right now, right? If he's a new artist, just came on the scene, and he doesn't have a song that went viral, went crazy, or hit record, then you're just a guy who raps. And as history tells us, there's a 95% chance that you won't last, right? That's a whole nother thing, another conversation.
Right.
So it's almost like, where do you get the gall to make such a demand, right? It's like, where did those three girls? And I hate that I'm using them as an example. I feel bad, but it's a real example. Where did y'all get the gall to try to threaten to sue Nicki Minaj instead of saying like, "Thank
Oh
you,
my God! Thank you, Nikki.
thank you," and then try to use that to get a deal or something, and then
Yeah.
turn it into something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. No. Wow.
everybody, that's what's wrong with social media too. Everybody thinks they're an expert.
Oh wow. Yeah. We got a lot of fake experts out there. Yeah. No. Yeah. 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 Do your
Could you
research.
imagine
Yeah.
someone arguing with Paul Stewart about sinking rates and the business and stuff like that, and you
Right.
like, fam, my whole, what are we talking about?
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
I've
That's
had these
crazy to me.
conversations recently with people. Some people I had to like, cut out because I couldn't work on them anymore because, yeah, and it's crazy, But look, I mean, most people get it. There's a small percentage of those people that are on that. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
the majority of people, want to learn about the business. So if they, I don't run into too much of that. Enough where it's annoying, but at the most part, I had a lot of gratitude from a lot of independent artists because I'm helping them get placements, their first placements, so many times. And that's something that I'm just an expert on, and I do consulting for if anyone is interested. But I've been helping so many indie artists get placements because that's out of the passion and love for the industry, the culture. Like because I
yeah,
could go to like boutique companies, labels, and not do all that groundwork of finding new indie artists, but I'm trying to help those that need it. Give back, you know what I mean? And that's rewarding to me, you know what I mean? And it's also like the fun of the discovery when you find something great. I'm trying to find that next, that next Kendrick or whatever. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
But so somebody asked, my man Austin asked, did you ever have a major disagreement creatively with a director or artist that made a choice you knew was a bad one, and how did you handle it?
Yeah, I mean, like it's over your pay grade typically, so there's not much you can do. I've worked with a lot of people that
Mm,
I thought I knew better than them about things. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
it's like you want to work again, you try to make them happy, typically. But that does give me a great story that's very relevant, but not exact.
Oh, let's hear
On
it.
that
Let's hear
F.
it.
Gary Gray video, it was his first video. Me and Coolio were both friends with F. Gary Gray.
Mhm.
So the label suggested him, and we said yes. And when we were done filming, I was really into filmmaking and studying. Like I said, I found all these big directors and stuff.
Yeah.
So I was always like asking the directors to send me all the raw footage. I like to look through it and be like, oh, hey, you missed this shot with the homie over here. Can you put him in or something like that? I wasn't like telling people what to do or anything like that. But I
Yeah.
was trying to miss shit and seeing what we had, studying it. You know what I mean? Seeing what they shot. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So we were on this conference call and I asked Gary for that. They said, oh, I don't do that. Now you got to remember, he was just a PA on the TV
Right.
show. Pump It Up. It was his first video. I'm like big time manager of
Yeah.
Coolio, Jeff Jan West. So I say to F. Gary Gray, "Well, we won't work together again." Boy, that was the dumbest thing I ever said. Like, dumbest thing. Never let your ego get involved.
Yeah.
Never let your ego get involved.
Yeah. You just let it go.
The worst decision of my career probably ever. But, so that's my director dispute story. Most people know.
Wow. Let me see. Oh, okay. Now this is we're getting to this question. We're starting to go to the business of music,
Okay.
right? And I will get to where the expertise comes in. At also, obviously, great stories. You've been doing an awesome job with these stories too.
Thank you.
Um, Beyond talent,
Mhm.
what does an artist really need to break through and sustain a career? I mean, obviously, there's many things, and it could be based on an individual basis, right? We talked about that. But what's some things beyond talent that artists can? Okay, here's a better question. What's something beyond talent that artists should also focus on?
Well, it's pretty simple. It's just it's perspiration, man. It's what they say. It's like 5% inspiration, 95% perspiration,
Yeah.
and it's that work ethic. It's that consistency. You got to treat it like a job. You got to be consistent.
Yeah.
You might be the most creative person in the world, and that's cool. You know what I mean? But you got to realize this is your job. So, like, get up, make tasks, follow through, do this stuff.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You can't. If this is how you're trying to grow your life, you got to take it really seriously and just study the economy. Like I said, there's a lot of artists right now. They're making a good living because they have 500 super fans who give them like $20 a month or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
and then they got their other little income streams. They got a placement here and there, So I mean, like, I really encourage artists to like build up those super fans, have things for them to feel like they're getting value, and try to sell that, whatever that is. If that's a Patreon membership where they get additional content,
Yep.
merch, obviously, these kind of things, But that's the advice that I give young artists is like if you build that foundation, and you nurture them, those people will be like your digital street team. Those will be the best thing you can have because they'll go out and hopefully try to spread the gospel of your music.
I think that's an awesome. I think that first of all, it makes so much sense and perfectly put. Being that this game we're in today is social media personality based, right? So it has to. This is almost the perfect time for. Let's say the talent isn't there, but the
Right.
personality is big.
Oh,
You
yeah,
can
we're
make
seeing
it
a lot of that.
yeah,
Yeah.
right?
Well, like I said, it's and also too with like the technology and auto tune and
Mhm.
maybe talented writers or whatever. I mean, it's not necessarily who's the most talented at all. You know what I
Right.
mean? But if you can get good product through a collaborative efforts, like if you know what's good and you can DJ Khaled it or whatever, however you're doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, yeah, it's more important the marketing promotion that you put in, the effort that you put into your craft overall. You know what I mean? Both the quality, and there's just so many different kind of artists, like you
Yeah.
got a lot of underground artists. What's that Haitian guy, man? He's incredible.
Oh, from Coach Contra?
Was that? No, the guy who he works with like West Side Gun and Benny the Butcher and them too. I'm gonna mispronounce his name, but it's like something Homey or something like that.
I'm not sure. I think I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's a big under. He never shows his face. He always wears a
Oh,
mask.
okay. Okay.
Yeah. But there's a bunch
Okay.
of these underground artists that have like this huge niche following and selling vinyl and all this stuff on their
Yeah.
releases, doing really well. You know what I mean? And so,
I think it's funny when I look at
I've
Griselda.
never heard of this dude. You know what I mean? And he's big, but it just
Yeah,
shows you that
that's why it's interesting when I look at cats like Griselda, who I love also.
yeah,
I love the fact that they're like big, right? But
yeah,
the average woman in California probably don't know them, right? And but it's almost like there's a cult following thing there, right? Because it's like they've done all the stuff with all the big artists, right?
yeah.
So they're not far from that, but also very much old school with a modern take, East Coast hip hop, right?
They're
Dirty
artists,
Dirty
artists.
East, kind of like
Yeah,
and I love it that they're in that pocket.
yeah,
They're not trying to make how we would deem cliche hit records. You can tell when somebody's trying to make a hit record.
sure.
They're not trying to do that either. You
No,
know.
I mean, I think it's an interesting time for stuff like that. That Alchemist Larry June 2 Chainz album is great. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I think it's very. And 2 Chainz has said some really interesting things in interviews, talking about how Larry June was putting him up on the indie thing, and like he never done
Yeah.
it before, and be like, oh wow, this is dope. Like and seeing how it's working and everything like that. But I mean, yeah, I think it's like you can be. It doesn't work as good for things that are like more really commercial, need to be on the radio or whatever. But
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
but for anything that's more street or underground or anything like that, you know what I mean? I think it's a you know it's a good time, I think, to be an artist, because you can control more of your stuff. Now, getting people's attention is tough because there's a lot of people, so you got to be dedicated to it, man. You can't give up.
Yeah.
You got to work on your craft. You got to try to catch that break. Like I don't think you can try to count on a viral hit or anything like that, but you got to try to like do what you can do to help that you get something that goes viral. You
For
know what I mean?
sure. And
Like,
then you got to know how to fan the
in a
flames.
different way. Like for example, look at LaRussell. I should have said him instead of Russ, but they're both great examples. But look at LaRussell right now. He went viral off that video of him rapping in the back of the pickup truck.
Yeah,
That's how
yeah, for
he
sure.
got first, right?
For
So
sure. Yeah.
that was unique and good to his audience. It wasn't like a TikTok dance or anything like
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it works different for different people. You don't necessarily have to try to make like a viral TikTok song to that usually never works anyway.
Right, right, right. Um, how did you stay so inspired after many years in the game? How do you stay so
Mm,
inspired?
mm. Well, I think I'm blessed in that I have an ear where I love new music. Like, I certainly appreciate a lot of old music. Like, oh man, some of my favorite music is the music that came before me, like
Yeah.
Otis Redding stuff, Stevie Wonder. Whatever. But, and I like the golden era stuff. I don't relive too much of it too much of the time. But I like to listen to new music all the time. Like last year on my wrap up on Spotify, Future was my most played artist. I was like, damn, okay. But like I listen to a lot of new music, and
Yeah.
I it's from a thing of not really studying it but enjoying it, because if I had to study it I'd give it up. Like there are things that I study more, like I know about them but I don't listen to them.
Right, right, right.
I know what they are, I know all about what they are, but
Yeah.
it's not my favorite. So I stay up on that. It can be a challenge, but I just I'm working on this project right now that's really special to me. It's about one of the high schools in Compton. It's a documentary about Dominguez Hills High in Compton, and they have college prep courses at the school, and
Uh,
and they talk about how positive that's been on some of the students that have done it, and how it's a positive thing for the community in general, and also a little bit about the school. And so the director is a friend of mine, and he came to me and he said, "Hey, can you help me with this? I don't really have any money for you, whatever." I said, "Oh man, of course I'll do that." And I said, "Hey, why don't we get the students to do the music?" And he loved the idea. And come to find out that there's a student, they have a classroom there with a studio. I mean, they have like two
ah,
tables, like a Jay Dilla poster, but
yeah, that's
they're
dope.
like really talented in there. So I went down and spoke to the class a couple of times. There's this guy Raj, who's like a professional producer, and like he's on tour with people like huge R&B artists like Neo and people like that, like like managing their stage, like musical director and things
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, yeah, he's serious, So he's up there teaching the kids, and so that's just an amazing thing to be able to go to the inner city in LA, work with young kids who are aspiring to do this.
Mm,
The fact that they have a class like that in high school, wow, that's amazing.
amazing.
You know what I mean?
For
And with a
sure.
guy who
Yeah.
people like Neo and stuff. So that's really amazing. So yeah, I just look for those kind of opportunities, and it never gets old helping talented artists make money from their craft, or and get exposure, and help them elevate their craft by getting them a placement or something like that, or so that keeps me motivated.
What does what does legacy mean to you?
Oof. Wow, that's a good word, man. I mean, that's a good question. Thank you. It can mean different things in different contexts, right?
Mm,
Okay, now I'm going to talk about my thing, man. Earlier today, I was thinking about cats that I came up with in the industry that are not here anymore, that took it away themselves, and the three guys came to mind. There was obviously Chris Lighty, there was
mm,
obviously Keir Stewart, and
yeah.
there was Karazov, who signed Tribe Called Quest and like was real tight with the Beastie Boys. It was
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
crazy Irish guy,
Tough, man.
yeah, and a great guy. And so I think the pressures of the industry, man, can be really hard on people, and it can be really challenging. And I don't necessarily want to say how much like the music industry had on all three of those, but I'm sure it had a lot to do with
For
all
sure.
three of those. But I'm sure there
Sure.
were other factors, of course. You know what I mean? But I mean, I think I feel blessed to be able to make a living from working in the arts. You know what I mean? For this long, it's really cool that I worked with Tupac and Snoop says crazy stuff about me on video, and I can show young people that, and they go, "Wow, look at this cool old white guy." You know what I mean? And so, and love to work with young people, and yeah, so yeah. I don't know if that answers. Did I answer?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because there's no. That's the thing about the legacy answer. I asked that question because there's no right or wrong answer. It's just what it means to you.
Right. So,
And,
right. The
I asked.
legacy of I'm sorry, the legacy of those
Go
guys.
ahead. I was gonna say
You
I
know,
was gonna say I asked that question because um, I wanted to be on the forefront of people's minds when it comes to because there obviously there's the legal definition, right? But I
right.
do want legacy to be on the forefront of people's minds when they're building such a career. I always think of like when I leave, not to get dark, but I always think of like when I leave this earth, what will people think about the things I've done here? You know what I mean? What will people think about the way I left all these things? Will they love what I did? Did they learn from me? Did they take something from me? Was it will I have quotes that be remembered amongst friends because it inspired somebody? You know what I mean? Or
Well, right.
you know what I mean?
Well,
So I'm always
no, no,
thinking like,
well, one thing is like that I've said a lot is there were a lot of guys that made a lot more money than me in the industry that I came up with, but I'm good in the hood. I get a lot of respect from people. I put a lot of
sure.
people on. I be running around the community and some guy run up and go, "Oh, I was in Compton." I'm like, a guy came and goes, "Oh, you got my cousin a deal back in the day." You know what I mean? I'll be on the street, people recognize
Yeah,
different people. And so, no, I mean, so to me, that's my legacy. You know what I mean? So it's like, and trying to do things like the Compton movie and things that I'm doing now about the high school stuff, giving back. You know what I mean? Like, and it's cool that I discovered these bands, like, these cool rappers back in the day and everything like that. It's great, you know what I mean? But I think, to try to like take that and do more with it is good, and everyone's got their own personal kind of thing. But I guess I was just thinking about those guys whose legacies sometimes get forgotten, who paid a lot of dues and kind of got maybe eaten up by the industry, so to speak. We should
yeah.
we should help these guys too, whenever possible.
Guilty pleasure music artists you listen to, embarrassing or otherwise. Just just don't say Nickelback. uh,
Okay,
yeah, what's a guilty pleasure for you?
classic rock,
I
the
love classic
Beatles.
rock.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the Beatles. Like I'd pull up bumping the Beatles and like maybe turn it down, like when I get to the
Yeah,
intersection or something like that.
I
Uh,
love that. Have you seen the
yes,
documentary Yacht Rock?
Timberland. I mean, like I like a lot of like a Jimi Hendrix or something. I do like some like pop classic, maybe like
Yeah.
house from the '80s and stuff like that, or like. But I'm not really a big like pop person per se. You
Okay.
know,
Okay.
but there are things that are really pop. I mean, when I was a little kid, I loved the Beach Boys. I still hear that shit. And kind of like that would be a super guilty pleasure. I would have turned that all the way off. But no, yeah, I would say probably the rock stuff. Kind of. Because I'm not really. I missed that whole like era of like Britney Spears. I was way past. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
records and everything. I was never into any of that. I,
Have
I,
you?
I I will admit that I think Justin Bieber got some slaps. So that's definitely
Okay. Okay.
I guess so. Yeah.
Have you seen the documentary Yacht Rock?
No, I have to check that out. But yeah, Michael McDonald, the sample from Regulate, that's a classic yacht rock. You know what I mean? So
Incredible. Incredible.
yeah,
I just
yeah.
talked to Warren about that. That documentary. When you get a chance, it's absolutely amazing. Um,
I will. I will.
there's some things obviously I didn't know. A couple things happened in that music in that documentary. There was the greatness of all these groups, right? You got your Steely Dan's, you got your like you said, Michael McDonald, Toto,
Sure.
Michael McDonald, obviously. A lot of different bands. Fleetwood Mac, which they were kind of debating back and forth about yacht rock or not.
Sure.
Um, and working out at the Village Studio, and in South Santa Monica, and which I've recorded there before. And but
All
they
right.
told a lot of what I didn't know was we're not going to go off on a tangent about this, but I just didn't know that they were recording when they were at the Village and at Westlake also, right?
Okay.
And I didn't know that, hell, I want to say the majority of Toto that worked on Thriller.
Oh, I worked on Thriller. Okay, I thought you were going to say. I knew you were going to say something about black music, but I thought you were going to say it was Marvin Gaye's band or something because he worked at some of those studios too, or whatever.
For sure. But they were rocking at the same studio.
Right, right.
And I didn't know that because Quincy, first of all, loved their voices
Yeah,
and they can sing the songs. They were writing essentially like Blue Eyed Soul before it was Blue Eyed Soul.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So when Quincy was making Thriller, the idea of concept of Thriller was Quincy wanted to make an album with every single genre on one album. That's why
Mhm,
Thriller sounds the way it sounds. He used pieces and elements from all over.
mhm.
So being almost in a room next to Toto, you got Michael McDonald sitting over there.
Sure.
I forgot the other guy's name, but the incredible guitarist and bass. He was like, "Man, can y'all play on this?" You know what I mean?
Sure.
Quincy's an incredible producer, directing, and
Sure.
I didn't know that a lot of things we heard was all these dudes tucked up under, and they were recording
Right.
the same thing. This is another thing I didn't know from one Easter egg from the documentary. It's not Easter egg; it's one thing I didn't know that Quincy Jones. So Michael McDonald was writing a song in a Toto session, right? He ended up writing a song, and the guys didn't like it. The rest of the group didn't like the song, right? I'm not going to say they liked the song. It didn't fit the album they
Okay.
were creating, and he was like, all right, whatever. And so they just playing the song over and over again. Quincy walked by the studio, stopped and came back and said, hey, what is that? He said, oh, a song we wrote, but I don't think guys want to use it. He said, hey, man, let me get that song. Let me get that. He said, I want to play it. Bring it over here. Let's play it over here in this session. He brought the song, play it over there. He ended up letting Quincy keep it. That song was Human Nature.
Wow.
He was writing that for Toto.
Wow.
Human Nature. And Quincy happened to walk by the studio and heard them playing that song.
There's a whole. There's so many songs that people gave up. I mean, Shock G wrote "Get Around," and Tom Boy really wanted him to keep it for Digital Underground. He's like, "No, I'm giving it to Pac." That's crazy, though. Human Nature for Toto. Wow,
Insane.
that is a crazy.
Insane. But it just shows it was about people rocking out and ego has left the room. There was no ego in them making the music like that.
Well, that was an era of musicianship, of
Yeah,
musician. So there was a respect level, like, oh, you can really play, or you can really play.
for
It didn't matter.
sure.
I mean, they'd all interchange. I mean, that's through history. Guys were playing on country records, were playing R&B records. The players were the players, white, black, otherwise. They rock and
For
soul.
sure.
Like you were just saying. So it's kind of interchangeable. But when we got into the program music era and the sample era of hip hop and everything, it all changed. Became the producer driven.
Yeah,
It was like the DJ premieres became these what that was. You know what I mean, so to
for
speak.
sure.
Or the Timberlands, or Pharrell
Look,
later.
we are Paul. You know me, and we've obviously we talked in actual real life, not just online. But
Yeah.
obviously I stepped away from the industry for my reasons. A lot of life changes, and I want to ask you: was there ever a time where you thought about, walking away from the
Mhm.
industry? And if so, if you didn't have that thought, what kind of brought you back? What kind of, turns you back into? I mean, just kind of got you off that. What was it?
Um, well, I've been on some like F the industry a bunch of times, in
For,
my life because
for
my
sure,
career is
for
such a
sure.
roller coaster. You know what I mean? But I started doing this when I was a kid. I don't know anything else.
Yeah,
Really, like, I'm not really suited for a lot of other jobs, so to speak. You know what I mean? I don't
yeah,
really,
for sure.
you know, um, but yeah, I mean, something like that. Oh, I should try to just buy a hotel in another country, manage it or something, or whatever. I definitely have had thoughts, but um, I love it still. For like I said, I love helping artists. The parts that I
Yes,
love, I still love. The parts I don't love, I don't love. But no, I'm kind of like cursed in that I started so young. That's all I ever done my whole life. So it doesn't seem like that viable of an idea for me to like step away. But I don't know if I'll feel that way always too.
right,
I think that
right.
I will always be involved. Um, in a creative thing like, oh, this is passion stuff I'm working on or whatever, but I might not be available for hire just to work on people's.
Ah,
Yeah, we could
okay.
maybe get to a point like that. You know what I mean? So where
Yeah.
I'm only doing the things that I really want because I want to do them. That's the goal.
Okay. Okay. Um, I had a couple more questions here that
Yeah.
we be good. I don't know. I kind of want to end with this one, so I
Yeah.
asked the other one.
Okay.
Let me see. Um, where we at? So I almost lost my space. Okay, here's one. What's one thing about your story that most people don't know?
Mm. Well, there's a lot of things. I mean, one thing that people didn't know back in the day, they didn't know that I was from the community. They didn't know I was from Crenshaw. Everyone thought I was from New York because I wasn't like bragging about. I didn't have a Crenshaw tattoo. I mean, I wasn't like I wasn't that kind of dude. So it was not known how connected to the black community in LA I was. That I was born and raised there, and that my family lived there forever, and that so that wasn't known. But then after I did the White Boy from Crenshaw trailer, then a lot of people knew that. You know what
For
I mean?
sure, for sure.
But
Yeah.
it's crazy when I'm not so much the braggadocious type. So I've learned how to do it for business. But
Yeah.
when I put out the White Boy from Crenshaw trailer, people were like, "I didn't know you did that. You discovered the Far Side? What?" Like Snoop says in the video, Paul Stewart discovered. He knows me well. He didn't know that. He knew I discovered Warren G because that was really important
Sure.
to him, and like that. He knew I worked on movies. He knew I worked on
Hmm.
Poetic Justice and all that stuff. But yeah, people didn't know a lot of the things I had done because I wasn't always like. One thing that a lot of people don't know, but I have told the story a lot of times, was kind of crazy, is that we made Gangster's Paradise the song at my house, like basically like in my living room.
Oh
There's a
wow.
studio. The producer was my roommate, and Coolio stopped by, pick up a check. He heard the song and just cut it. So that's kind of a crazy little story.
Dude, it's how many, it's funny. I just talked about that, right? How many incredible stories where somebody was walking by and heard something? You know what I mean? That somebody happened to be walking by,
That's
and then
exactly that story. He said he was out there. The way he tells the story, and there's a little dispute from different people, but he said he was
Mhm.
out the door and he heard it and came back in. So he was really like really one of those. And then look at how
Hey,
big
that
it.
song turned into
And
obviously a
then the last
Grammy,
thing
but
I'll say about that is the label was
Mhm.
like, I said to the label like, it's okay. They weren't crazy about it, and I was
Really,
like, I'm gonna try to get it in a movie. They said, okay, yeah, go ahead and try to do that. And then I got it in the movie.
right? And then the rest is history.
Yeah, yeah,
Huge,
yeah.
you know.
And
That's
that
crazy.
sometimes
Let me ask you this:
yeah.
those moments, do you ever get to bask in those moments? That's a huge moment, right? And then you had your hands on a lot. Here's the thing: you had your hands on a lot of huge legacy acts now,
Yeah,
right? That helped create Find, and
sure.
then, but did you ever get, because moving around the industry, I understand it gets busy. You're moving around so much. Did
Oh
you ever
yeah.
get a time to just bask in like the
I
joy
want to
of
say, I want to
a
say,
win?
I want to say so much no, because it was like so much was happening so fast, you're not appreciating it. But there are
Yeah.
moments that stood out for me in regards to Gangster's Paradise. One was when, because I never toured with the artist. One was when
Mhm.
I went to a leg of the European tour of that and saw the audiences like singing every word, but they didn't even speak English. That was mind blowing.
Wow.
Just to be like, I'm in this other country. This song we recorded
Yeah.
turned into this, like whoa. And then it was surreal for real. um
That's
that's
crazy.
and the other one, the other one was when we did the MTV Awards and Stevie Wonder sang with LV and Coolio on stage and performed with them. And so, then afterwards, I got to meet him and take a picture with, Stevie and Coolio.
Oh,
And so that was just like a highlight because I had been a Stevie Wonder fan since I was a little kid. And he's one of my all-time
right.
favorite artists. You know what I mean? I was like fanboy mode. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care about nobody. Like Stevie's there.
Right.
I'm out.
you brought you brought up an interesting point about songs, especially when you perform out the country and people who
Mhm.
don't speak English are singing your record word for word
Mhm.
in English, right? It's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting when you think about the dynamics of how people embrace our culture outside of here more than we embrace our own culture. As far as like, let's talk about hip hop. And so what I mean by that is because I never thought about this. You could go somewhere and perform in a country that don't understand English, don't, but the primary language isn't English,
Right.
and people would know the whole entire song or set in English, but these same people don't speak. Now, obviously, some of them do,
Right.
but same people don't even speak English. It's kind of like a testament to just how much love for a certain thing that they have. Because think about it, that doesn't happen and vice versa.
Right.
There's not a Spanish artist
No.
that will come on stage, sing even here
Right.
in America. There's not a Spanish artist that sings a whole song in Spanish, and then the people who don't know Spanish, they cannot sing along.
No.
They might like it and love it and know the
You know,
sound
a
of the
couple
melody.
words, it's a Bad Bunny song or something. But yeah, no, for sure, you're right.
Right.
No, it's
You
a
know what I mean?
phenomenon.
So I think it's
Well,
interesting.
hip hop changed everything, man. You know, it's like I
Yeah.
was blessed to be a part of like that early wave of when it was spreading internationally and see that take off. You know, now we all take it for granted.
Yeah.
Cool, you know that it's an
Yeah.
international like phenomenon started by some black kids in the Bronx or whatever, or in the you know, but yeah, you know, I mean, it's amazing how far it's come as a music art form, you know, and it's exciting. You know, I have a call coming up with the Hip Hop Museum. I hope to get involved with them. You know, it's
Oh,
nice that
dope.
there's people, you know, trying to preserve the culture and give flowers to some of these people who, because the early guys did it, we all did it for love. We like it
Yeah.
wasn't about, we were just so into the culture, and so
I mean, it wasn't no money.
didn't make money. Right, a lot of people didn't make money who deserved to make money.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Right.
Um,
The coal crush.
this other question.
We're
Oh,
tax you for what you do to the coal crush, you know.
right, right. Uh, okay. If a young Paul Stewart were coming up today, what advice would you give him?
Woof. That's a whole video. But yeah, learn the business. It ain't just a fun. It's not fun, man. Take it serious. This is your
Yeah,
career.
learn the business, man. Yeah,
You know, look at things, you know, analytically. Understand what an ROI is, because I had my own business for so long, but I didn't. You know what I mean? I wasn't really like business minded like that. Money came in, I spent it, money went out, you know, ran out
yeah,
probably, more money came in, you know. I was always good at making money. That I have a talent for that,
for,
you know.
for sure, for sure,
Managing it and managing the businesses has been much harder for me. I've gained a lot of skills in these areas out of necessity. You know what I
for
mean? But
sure.
yeah, I would just I mean, I would cheat. I would tell him to film everything. You know, God, if I had filmed hanging out with Tupac at the Freaknik, I could have retired. You know, 10 years ago if I wanted to, right? From that footage, you know. But I don't know,
Right.
I mean, you know, I mean, but that's cheating, right? You know, but you know, maybe you know, document things. You know, collect things, save things. Oh my God, you know, all the things I threw away that are worth all this
Yeah.
and just have your business straight. You know, I was always good to artists, and they weren't always good to me, but I don't regret it. But I just wish I had been a little more sharky in how I handled my business. So it was like, oh, okay, you're gonna jerk me, fine, but I still got mine. You know,
Right.
wasn't really set up like that for me. But and also too, though, I don't really have much regrets because it went the way it did. I'm at where I'm at now. Uh, I'm living better than a lot of these rich guys because you know they're so stressed out about this and everything like that.
Right. For sure. For
I'm
sure.
not that rich, but I don't have that much stress, and you know, so I feel blessed. I'm welcome in my community, and both of them in the hoods here in Santo Domingo and in the hoods
Mhm.
in LA. You know, so I get love. So yeah, I feel blessed, man, and I appreciate you putting me on your platform.
Man, that's so. First of all, I want to say once again. First of all, you're welcome. But for me, it's an honor. So it's not. It's not even. Like I said, I know your career. We've talked about, like I said, great stories, legendary moves being made, huge acts being brought to fruition with your help, your hands-on expertise.
Yeah,
And we're figuring it out, right? Um, I, I, but once again, I always give you your flowers because you're willing to tell the stories and also teach. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think it's in. Oh, you know what? Okay, I got to do it. So I know it's unprofessional. I know he's about to rap, but this has to happen, right?
Okay.
We got to talk about. We didn't talk about this. We go to. I, I think artists, if you're listening, as a new artist or as an artist in the game, trying to do music, trying to focus whatever you're trying. If you're trying to do music as an artist, I need you to listen and listen, listen clearly. Paul, let's talk. First of all, explain what music sync is, syncing music, right?
Yep.
And why it's such a vital and viable method in TV and film.
Okay, for sure. Okay, so a sync placement is the act of taking a song and getting it licensed for use in either a TV show, a film, a video game, a commercial, a trailer, any of these kind of mediums. And it's a really any independent artist right now that isn't building a sync strategy and trying to get involved in sync is missing out. This needs to be an important area of your strategy. Now, they're not the easiest things to get. They're also not the hardest. You're more likely to start making money from a sync than you are from your streaming. I can tell you that. It's a lot more realistic for most artists, and it's a great way to try to jumpstart their streaming as well. So there's so many pluses for an artist. You know what I mean? An
Yeah,
independent artist. Um, it's a bit of a. Of course, every artist wants their music on film and TV, so it's not that easy. It's competitive. There's a lot of artists trying to do it, but there's a lot of inside um, information that you can get to try to present yourself in that way and have more success. You know what I mean? And one of the main things I tell artists or producers, because I also work with a lot of producers,
mhm.
is to network with artists or producers who hopefully are just getting started in their journey of getting involved in sync. Or maybe they're even further along because an artist might be getting a lot of syncs, but maybe they haven't found a producer that has exact kind of tracks that they're looking for at this moment,
Yeah,
or a certain
for
kind of
sure.
track they could do something with that they haven't found. So, or vice versa, So, I mean, I always encourage artists to try to network with producers, other artists, songwriters, anyone who's involved in sync a little bit or established if you have something to offer. You know what I mean? Producers need
Yeah,
art. The producers can be killing it in sync. And if you're a talented songwriter artist and you've never got to sync, but you're good and you can hustle, you'll if you're not in the same city as them, you can record it on your own and send it back to them, or
sure.
and you'll get then like you could go from not having in syncs to a whole bunch of syncs really fast if you find the right producers, who are involved in sync. So it's a huge way where artists are like almost every independent artist I know right now, their most streamed song is a song that they got synced in a TV show or something like that because
Yeah,
people
for
are
sure.
sampling it, you know what I mean? And so it gives you a leg up on your algorithm and these kind of things. So sync can just be a way to get paid from your art before maybe your career takes off to a bigger level where you're getting paid for shows or things like that. A way to
Yeah,
help get a lot of exposure to your music and your art, and because of those two things, I feel like it's a really important component for any kind of independent artist, independent label,
yeah,
producer. I mean, I talk to big producers all the time that have publishing deals and stuff, and they're like, "Man, I'm trying to get more involved in sync," and I'm like, "Well, I can't really help you anymore because now you're signed to this big publishing company."
right, right, right. Yeah, yeah.
If you were independent, I could help you. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
like, good luck, work the system. Like go in there and talk to I give them advice, go in and talk to the film sync people
Right.
and tell them you're trying to get busy and, what do they need, from you. And, but, yeah, I can definitely help. I help a lot of independent producers and stuff. But, so I said that to say that there's guys that have gotten big placements on albums and got publishing deals and stuff, but still have not done much in sync or maybe no sync. Or they got a sync, but they don't know how it happened because it came from the company and they're
For
trying to figure
sure.
out more proactive or something. You know what I mean? So, so it shows you that for the independent producers and stuff, yeah, like, definitely a lot to learn and a big opportunity because you have more opportunities in them because they're stifled by that company because I will only go to them for their material if I need that particular song. because it's going to be a huge budget because it's with a major publisher. So your opportunity comes with there's a lot of placement opportunities that don't have that large budgets, so we need independent music, and it could be a great way to expose your music,
One hundred
get
percent.
work and everybody.
I explain it like I always explain it like I'm into photography, so it's like stock photos, right? It's like I,
Right.
I I take tons of photos. There's programs or people I can get with where I could sit my sign up for these little websites or programs, whatever, and kind of they ask what they tell you what kind of pictures they're looking for. There's certain topics, certain
Right.
genres. They tell you the quality they need for the picture, the size, and you just post all your pictures and it's sitting on the site where people are in there, especially a lot of times TV and film, are
Yeah.
looking for artwork for something, or hotel rooms maybe looking for a photo or something, or Target maybe look you've all walked in Target and walked past the picture section and saw these random pictures with like artwork in it or faces or a painting. All those are stock photos. It's like the music industry's sync game where songs are sitting in the system or being presented to a company, a production company, to be used in television or film, right? And I love that because shout out to Paul once again. Paul got me my very first TV placement on Insecure, the very first episode,
Yeah, that was
right?
dope. That was
That was
dope.
super dope. Hey, that was matter of fact. We gonna clap it up for that one.
Yeah, that's definitely. That's why I stay inspired, because I'm looking for more opportunities like that to do things like that. And have people say, "Man, Paul got me my first placement," and man, to be on
Yeah,
Insecure, cool that it was that. And that was another one. Like, it was a pilot. Who even know? You don't even know it's
right,
like
right.
this show called Insecure wasn't even out yet. When I was hitting you up about
Yeah,
it. So yeah,
but it
no,
worked out.
yeah, no. I mean, sync placement is something that all independent artists and producers should be pursuing. And if you're more interested, hit on my page on Instagram. Hit me up, send me a DM, or there's a link there or whatever. But definitely, I would encourage artists. It's like I said, it's a lot more feasible that you're going to make some money from sync than you're streaming, and
Yeah,
it can make
yeah,
money from your streaming. So
yeah.
it's definitely an area that you should be trying to get involved in as much as possible.
And for the people who know, I have Paul's IG tag on the screen.
Thank you.
Follow him, and when you get a chance, please follow him. If you have any more questions about music in general, music producing, music supervising, sync, TV and film, he's a wealth of knowledge. As you've seen today, we've talked about so many things. He covered so much today in this interview, and I think you should. I wish I did early on in my career. I think we should reach out, and I think we should try to see what that's about. I think there's a lot of people who are living, not even just surviving. They're living on sync money, on
Yeah.
like movies for on songs being placed in TV and films or hit shows, or you never know. You may get a theme song or something. You may get called for that kind of thing. And Paul is one of the ways he's literally a bridge to that. You know what I mean? Are there any websites or programs or anything? How did should it be like a what does an artist do? For
Okay, I
example, the
got
artist
one
you just
one
mentioned,
for you.
Paul.
I got one
Okay.
for you. Well, two. Okay, IMDb is a website, right? And like that's where everyone's film and TV credits are. So
Yeah, yeah.
go to all the TV shows and movies that you like and you think your music should be on that makes sense for, and go to IMDb and see who is the music producer. I'm sorry, who is the music supervisor of the show,
Yeah.
and learn who these people are by name. See if you can see if they're on social media. Follow them.
That's
Don't
a good game right there.
be careful. It's a fine line. These people get hit up ridiculously amount with people wanting to hear
For
their
sure.
music. So
For
be
sure.
careful how you approach people. You know what I mean? But find out who these people are. Some people do things like I do. I do a consulting session. So for a small fee, you can pay me and meet me, and then you have that relationship or whatever. Other supervisors have different things going on or whatever. But study who the people are on IMDb. That's a good one. And the second one, and I really should be getting paid for this, but I'm gonna do it anyway because it's just such a great product. is there is a platform called Disco. And Disco is a music storage platform. And before Disco, all the music supervisors, we used to use Dropbox or Box, or we might send files like WeTransfer, or Google Drive started to become a thing right there at the end of that. But they all suck for sending music, and
Okay.
they weren't made for music. And Disco is a platform that all of the music supervisors and all of the people in sync adopted rapidly when it came out. And so there's a couple of things. First of all, I've never seen a better music storage system. It's affordable. I want to say for something like $12.99 or $14.99, you can get like 1,000 songs a month. It's
Oh,
stored
that's
in there,
dope.
something like that, right? I have a music supervisor plan, so I have like 5,000 songs or something in there. But so the way you can arrange music and send music is incredible, and because everyone in the industry, in the sync industry, uses it, very important. Like before, let's say Luck wanted to send me some music, he would email me some MP3s, God forbid waves, but he'd send me these files. I'd have to download them and then upload them in some way and then share them in some way with my clients.
Right.
Now, with Disco, he can do one of two things. I'll send him a upload link and he just loads the MP3s up there and they're right in my Disco. Or if he has Disco, he sends me a Disco link and I click on it and say save. Could be 50, could be 100 songs, could be however many songs
Yeah.
instantly. And then I can manipulate it and make new playlists for me to send to my client, because that's how it typically works. Like, let's say the need is, it's an action sports scene. I need some kind of like, hip hop song that sounds, good for an action, a sports scene or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So Luck will send me 5 songs. Then 3 other people that I deal with, like Luck, will send me 5 songs, and I'll go through them real quick, and I'll pick one or two of the best I think out of all those, make a new playlist, and shoot that off to my client. It took me like 10 minutes, maybe, because everything
Wow.
is disco, and I'm just throwing it into a new playlist or whatever. And so, yeah, it's a great program.
Is
So I
Disco
highly recommend it
DISCO?
for anyone that really wants to get involved in sync. It's disco.ac.
Is,
And
is, is it DISCO?
yeah, disco, like the
Okay.
music
Okay.
genre,
Okay.
dot AC. Yeah. And it's also
Disco.AC.
just a great way to store, like, I always encourage producers to get it when I consult with producers, because you got all these tracks, you got 800 tracks on this hard drive, and that hard drive, and I'm not doing you any good over there, man.
Right.
Put them all in this place, organize them. These are my trap ones. These are my this. These are my that. Get rid of the ones that aren't, if
Look,
you got
I'm
10 better trap ones, you don't need these other 10 not quite as good trap ones, maybe, or whatever.
I'm a guilty of that myself, being that I didn't put out a lot of music on my own. And what I mean by that, as a solo artist. So that means I have tons of songs just sitting on my computer that nobody ever heard, and maybe nobody will ever hear them. But they could have been like on some movie somewhere, on Tubi or something or whatever.
Right. Let's end on a more positive note. We're going to talk and we're going to figure out how to get me that music. And as long as the producers aren't currently signed to like major publishers and
Right,
they're
right,
easy
right.
to deal with, we can shop all that material now.
For sure,
There's
for
no
sure, for sure.
expiration on it. It doesn't need to be released. It can be released. None of that matters. What
Right,
matters
right.
is that it's going to be easy to clear. Everyone's going to be able
Yeah,
to deal with. The music is good, and then we can go.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely do that because I'll be thinking of that too. Like all these songs that people never. Me and my like me and Prob would talk, and he'll play old songs, and I'm just like, damn, we never put that out, or we never put that out. All these things, and you
Right,
just be
right.
thinking like, I could have did way much better sitting in some library somewhere who people pick music for something. So yeah,
For real.
yeah,
Look, there's all kind of stories. People have old material they never put out. They have material that was put out. Like I said, none of that matters. It just needs
yeah,
to be like, it just needs to be something that is, from my perspective, typically it's going to be easy to clear. If there's a bigger artist on it and it was never released and you want to present that, like if you talk to the artist, you go, we could clear it, but we're gonna have to pay him, what his normal
Right,
fee.
right, right. Yeah. Hmm.
That's cool too, but it's like, yeah, like you said, get it in catalogs, get it in libraries where people do it, because it's never too late. I mean, there's period pieces. They might want, like when you were at the height of like the mustard era, when you were really popping, they
Hmm.
might want a piece that comes from that era and love to have
Yeah.
songs that didn't come out that sound just like the hits that came out or whatever,
Yeah.
or just, music's timeless, man, so,
Yeah.
good music is good music, so.
Well, Paul, man, it's truly been an honor. Been an honor to have you, man. It's been a joy to have this conversation. Um, and obviously we'll have many more. I'm gonna say on live also. I do when you're back in town. Let me know.
Yeah.
Um, there's something I want you to put your eyes on and ears on.
Okay.
Something super cool. Me and a couple of my friends been working on. I
Nice.
don't want to say the names just yet, but we'll talk.
All right.
And I would love to just know what you. I would love for you to hear it. I love for you to see it and hear it. It's absolutely amazing, and I can't wait. I can't wait for you. I can't wait for when you touch down. We got to make that happen. Okay, we got to put up on us.
First
Um,
thing. First thing.
yeah, we got to put up on us. So, but yeah, man, it's an honor to have you, man. Such a pleasure. For those who are watching and want to follow his journey, tap in with him. Right, you can follow his Instagram here, Paul underscore DJP underscore Stewart. Follow him, tap in with him, DM him, ask about some sync things. If you got music or you're looking to get into the business of TV and film and songs, and he's the man. He's the guy. He makes it happen. Everybody knows his name. We're talking about these people been in the business when the business was being built out, right? You know what I mean? And it's such an honor, and I tip my hat to you for being still being down, doing the work, and
Thank you.
see, this is a testament to your name and who you are. Being in this business for this long, from the streets to the business, and your name's still solid, says
Mm.
it means something. A lot of people got ran out of town, bad business, nobody messes with them, a lot of red tape. You know what I mean? So it says a lot about who you are, and I got to tip my hat to y'all for that as well. But I thank you, man. I thank you for being here today. It's been awesome. It's been
Man,
awesome,
thanks for all the kind words. Thanks for the platform. And we definitely going to catch up after. We got a lot to talk about. But once again, I appreciate it, man. You have a great day,
my
okay?
man. You have a good one, Paul. I'm gonna tap in with you ASAP,
Okay, perfect. Okay, take
my
care.
guy. All right.
Later.
Yeah, shout out to Paul, man. That was an amazing interview, man. I'm so excited about just this whole play. You know what I mean? It's so cool that he stopped by. It's been a dope conversation. A lot of gems are dropped, a lot of game, a lot of great stories. It's so much to learn from him. And like I said, we've done business before. I've made a lot of money with him before, and I think you should too. If you're in the business of music and you have songs, you have beats, or you have songs, and you're an artist or whatever, or you want to just get some songs played somewhere on TV or film. If you ever wonder how you listen to you listen to one of your shows or one of these movies, independent movies or major films, and you hear these artists that may not be signed or may not have no big names, but they're in your movie and film that you're watching. Paul is how that happens, right? Guys like Paul is how that happens. So you might want to connect with him, get with him, and try to get that going. I thank y'all for stopping by. I thank all you guys for leaving comments, asking questions. Shout out to Alex Royale. Shout out to or Alex Royal. I don't want to mess it up. Miss Yvonne, thank you, love, thank you. I appreciate you for stopping by. GP, what's the deal, man? Nick with the clovers, I see you, man. Salute. Clarissa, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you. I appreciate your comments. Austin, my good brother, thank you for your questions, man. Amazing questions. I'm glad we got some of those answered for you. I appreciate you. And just thank you all who stopped by. A lot of you were peeking, wasn't speaking. That's quite all right with me. I just thank y'all for stopping by, man. And look forward to next week. I got ideas for what I want to have one next week. And also, I think I want to start going live uh, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, or Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays and Thursdays are going to be my it's Up with Luck. I got a show called Up with Luck I want to start doing, and where I just talk about the latest and the greatest of like hip hop or social media or pop culture, and I want to lend my thoughts and views on or opinions on certain kind of situations, I might do that Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'll get some flyer done and get some time set so you can tap in with me for that for sure. And look forward to, I want to do a great interview at least once a week with some really cool people. So I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for tapping in. See y'all next week. Yeah, that. Peace.